Good evening. Welcome all to our committee on ordinance. Today, September 19th, 2023. It is 5 p.m. Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Chairman Espinal,
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Peterson, present. Councilwoman Harris,
Present.
Councilman Vargas,
Present.
Councilor Royas is absent. We have 4 present and 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to recognize our colleague, Councilman Roncal, who is the person with us, as well as VP from our law department and our wonderful team from the clerk's office and everyone else that is here. Welcome to our committee on ordinance. Madam Clerk, I'd like to take an item number 3 out of order. So I'll entertain a motion to take item number 3 out of order.
So moved. Second.
Motion is made in second on favor aye.
Aye.
Right. Madam Clerk, item number 3.
Petition from Vincent Mann, Kiltiff Investments and Consulting LLC, 1 Custom Suite 201, Providence, Rhode Island, 02903, requesting a zone change for the property located on Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 101, 515 Prairie Avenue, Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 99, 134 Gallup Street, and Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 98, 138 Gallup Street from a pre-existing non-conforming use, 2 vacant lots, and a commercial detail shop from R3 to R4.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion to enter into the record Exhibit 3A, letter from the CPC.
So moved. Second.
Record A, second, on favor aye.
Aye.
Opposed, yes, have it. Exhibit 3A is entered into the record. Madam Clerk, you read the bottom of this exhibit, please. Just what the recommendation from the CPC on this item is. This is an item that was before us. We had the public hearing, we were back and forth on this, and it's ready now. So please read the bottom of that.
Yes, the recommendation from the CPC is on the motion of Commissioner Sanchez, seconded by Commissioner Kazeta. The CPC voted to recommend that the City Council rezone the lots to R4.
Thank you so much. And we also have Attorney Garrity here. Mr. Garrity, on this item, if you have anything to add at this moment, please.
Mr. Chairman, John Garrett, on behalf of the petitioner, thank you very much, and thank you for the courtesy of moving this up on the agenda. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Chairman, as you had indicated, this has had the public hearing. They had a formal issue with CPC at the time, it was going to be considered. CPC has since taken it up and recommended approval. They have also approved the land development project for the project, which is a 15-unit apartment complex. This R4 zone change will enable that and make that happen. So it's already in the works. So you'll be able to see the fruits of your labor very quickly with respect to this zone change, and then the development of the property into apartment uses as opposed to vacant lot and an auto body shop. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Garrity. I actually did have an opportunity to drive by, and I'm familiar, it's actually within my ward. So I'm very familiar with the area. I know what exists there today. And I look at the schematic here, I know what it will look like once this is granted. So I personally like to thank the developer for putting this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. He was going to be here. I think he may be here in 5 minutes, but just as well. Thank you very much. I'll relay that to you.
Thank you. Any question from my committee members?
Councilman,
Yes.
I just to reflect back, is this still the establishment that you and I went to that had that vacant house? Is that the same one in that area?
This is actually the car wash at the corner of Northwest and Prairie, and it also has 2 vacant lots. There's a lot of trash garbage there. There's an area that needs to be upgraded.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just had a different reflection when you had where is it?
As you can see, the councilwoman and I, when it comes to our work, we do get in our cars and we take a ride and we make sure we do the legwork.
Mr. Chairman, I know that, and Councilman, I'm involved in that project over on Swan Street that you're talking about. This is not it, but
Yeah,
very much appreciated your efforts over there.
that's right.
No, that is a different project.
Yeah,
That's moving forward, it's coming along.
okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any further question? All right, so being that there is no further question, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is made second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it, the motion is, and this item is approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Garrity, and thank you for investing in Providence, and especially in Ward 10. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll listen to the motion to take another item out of order, which will be item number 2.
So
Its motion is
Second.
second, all in favor, aye. Opposed? Yeah, okay, so now we're gonna, item number 2, Madam Clerk.
An ordinance amending chapter 23, streets, sidewalks, and public places of the Providence Code of Ordinances to add Article 8, green and complete streets, and chapter 15, motor vehicles and traffic.
I'll entertain a motion to add into the record exhibit 2A, which is the testimony and also survey.
moved.
It's made
Second.
and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. This becomes part of the record. Okay, so I thank you so much. Do we have anyone here to speak on this item? Councilman Gonka, please, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak on this. I want to also acknowledge my council colleague, Andrew Blah, who isn't here, but I know she was very much a part of this effort. So this amendment being proposed is actually due to the advocacy of several folks. I know that you have had an opportunity to look at some of the testimony here across all wards in the city of Providence, and essentially what it does is it enhances the green and complete street ordinance, which is something that the council passed, and several council members, in fact, here who were here during the last term, such as yourself, Chairman, and also Councilwoman, and also Councilman passed, and it further supports the city's urban trails to ensure the expansion of multimodal transportation in our city. And I wanted to point out some of the testimony that we received from members of the community. Val in particular, for example, who said that she finds the committee to be very data-driven, yet compassionate to residents and their needs and requests. The group sometimes struggles to convene a quorum at times, so expanding their membership seems logical. That's some insight that we heard from members of the community. Lisa, who talked about how it helps make her feel safe and comfortable, as well as Cedric. There are several organizations who are supporting this as well, including Grow Smart Rhode Island, AARP, particularly members of the senior community benefit from this amendment and also this ordinance in general. And I think there was testimony that said, you know, these small changes to the law will strengthen our city's ability to deliver safe, equitable, and sustainable streets to the city of Providence. And there was a resident who also said, by voting for this amendment, you're emphasizing the importance of involving local residents and stakeholders in decision-making processes regarding transportation infrastructure. I also want to acknowledge some other folks here. I know Alex Ellis is here from the city's planning department. He was very instrumental in this particular amendment and was very much working in conjunction with our policy staff on tightening up the language. Liza Birkin, who's here, Dylan Giles, and also Doug Johnson, who's also a member of the Green and Complete Streets Advisory Committee. So there were several things that were challenges, and we're seeing those amendments here. The members of the committee and the advisory committee in particular brought all of these issues to our attention as a way to tighten up a seemingly good ordinance that had some blind spots. So I'm happy to take any questions about any of the specific changes or provisions that are being recommended here, but ultimately this is, in my opinion, a very good amendment that was really a bottom-up approach. There were lots of members in the community who were very much involved in this process, and it's ultimately going to ensure that the Green and Complete Streets Advisory Committee can operate at its fullest potential. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Question from the committee, Councilor Harris.
I only have one question. How many people are serving on the committee right now? Right? How many?
So, if you refer to, I don't think these are, I think it's page 3 here. So there are 3 members that are appointed by the mayor, 4 members that are appointed by the city council. And what this is also proposing through the amendment is 2 alternate members, 1 appointed by the mayor and 1 appointed by the city council, in which where a regular member is unable to serve, the first alternate member may vote in his or her absence, or the second alternate shall vote if 2 regular members are unable to serve. This was a byproduct of them not being able to convene a quorum first.
How many people were serving before we, the recommendation, do you have a number for that? And how much have this increased the board and the board's capacity?
That's a good question. I would probably defer to, if I may, Mr. Chairman, Alex would probably know this answer better than I would, just because there's been some fluidity. I don't know if all of the members of the board have necessarily been appointed. So I don't want to speak out of turn or get.
I'm just looking at the numbers, because between these numbers is what, about 7 altogether, new people between the mayor and the city council will be joining the board. So I'm just wondering how many people are already there on the board, and are these members of the board committee community members who have came together to form this board, and now we're looking to empower them by becoming partners with it? What's going on here? I just don't get the.
Yeah, so there, as you can see here, I'm kind of doing the math here. I don't know if everyone has been necessarily appointed to the board. I know that there's been some turnover as well. So I don't want to speak out of term in terms of the number of official members that are serving in this capacity, but there's the director of public works who serves as a non-voting ex officio member, the director of planning and development. So that's another person, that's 2, the commissioner of public safety or a designee, the director of the Office of Sustainability, and then the city forester. So that's 5 folks or their designees serving as non-voting ex officio members. Then there are 3 members that are appointed by the mayor. So that would be 8. 4 members appointed by the city council, that would be 12. And then this proposes having 2 alternate members in the event that there isn't a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, if I can direct everyone's attention to the screen here, we do keep a boards and commissions list.
That's very helpful.
Thank you.
These are the current membership that we have right now.
And then to answer your second question, Councilwoman, there are members who are from the general community. You can see them, they're listed. Some are mayoral appointments and some have been appointed by the Providence City Council.
So Madam Clerk, how many members actually have already been appointed.
Currently on this list, there are 12.
There are 12 that
Yeah.
should be serving.
That would be serving.
That's when you're saying that sometimes they have tough time making a quorum.
Yes, and that's the feedback that we received from members of the committee, so it's been hard for them to convene, so providing this amendment and this provision would result in the group being able to convene and do their normal course of.
To add an additional 2 members.
Yeah,
Madam
wait,
Clerk-
I'm a little, wait a minute, I'm
Go
so
ahead.
sorry, I'm so sorry, Councilman, be patient with me. I'm-
No, of course, I'm here to answer the questions.
Here we're counting people who are serving already, according is 12 people already serving.
Mhm.
Are we saying through our amendment that we're adding additional people?
Not necessarily, these
What
are,
was
these are 2 alternate members. So these folks would be appointed, one by the mayor, one by the city council. And when there is a member who is unable to serve or attend, the first alternate member can vote in his or her absence.
But here say 3 members appointed by the mayor, so those people are all alternates. And they will serve in the capacity of whoever's not there.
Let me,
I'm confused. Yeah, this is, yeah, please.
clarify a little bit, as I read through this, there are 7 members. 3 appointed by the mayor,
Mhm,
4 appointed by the council,
mhm.
right?
So what happens to the
This-
people that's serving already, like people from the planning? I'm sure that's very important.
There is someone from planning, someone from DPW, but they are non-voting members. Now, what this amendment is asking to add an additional 2 members. They are appointed members, they will only vote in case of the absence of one of the members. So that can almost perhaps guarantee them a quorum. So if you don't have a quorum, there is an additional member that can serve and vote at that time.
So we don't have a 14 board, we have a 7-panel board.
7 community members and then the 5 ex officio members, as the chairman pointed out.
You have 7 voting members. This is looking to add an addition to voting members in case of the absence of. Still a little confusing.
No, it's just, the numbers got me confused. It sounded like there was a lot of numbers being thrown out there. What I thought was, to me, this is what I was receiving,
Mhm.
communicating. There were additional people being put on the board. That's what I was receiving. In reference, in spite of the ones that we already have. I thought it was more being added. That's what I thought I was reading.
That is correct. So there would be 2 alternate members that are, once this gets passed, the mayor would appoint one and then the council would appoint another.
Okay, so it adds up. Okay, it's not adding up to 24 people, it's adding up to. With the 14 is there.
So
16.
there were. The best way to describe this is there would be 12 full members. With 2 alternates in the event that the voting member, 2 of the voting members can't attend the meeting.
Gotcha, the map is wrong, I mean, but yeah, it's sort of tongue tied.
Sorry, that's very confusing, but thank you
No, thank you.
for bearing with.
That's a
With me.
little better. I thought we had over 24 people serving on the board. By the time I was counting that, the mayor would add 4 members appointed by the city council and 3 members appointed by the mayor. But these are already people who will be serving, period.
Yes, they are,
I believe they have,
Alternates.
they have already been appointed.
Appointed, okay.
They
yes,
have already been serving, and this is just adding 2 additional alternate in case of. They don't have a quorum, those 2 new members will have the voting ability and power.
Thank you. It wasn't you, it was me.
Uh,
Water, we were.
Councilwoman Peterson.
There's a lot,
No, thank
so thanks for bearing with me.
Thank you. My question is, can you give me an example of the types of things that the advisory council votes on currently? Or like what's something that recently have passed through the advisory council?
I would defer to the planning department on that, so what this ordinance essentially does is if there are, any improvements to infrastructure with regards to safe, reliable, equitable transportation, walkability projects, mobility projects, the Green and Complete Streets Advisory Committee would be involved in that process. So that's something that they would have direct oversight over. So this is something that the council has already approved. So this is a process that's currently in place. So if, let's say, I can just give you a theoretical situation. If there was anything that had to do with anything remotely close to any of those projects, it would go before this body. And they would vote on it. I can't speak to what they had passed recently, but they're very actively involved in any of those matters.
Councilwoman, I know you have a series of questions, and as the councilman said, the Department of Planning. So I'd like to call, if I may, Madam Clerk, Mr. Ellis from the Department of Planning. I'm sure he has a lot to contribute.
He would be able to speak better to this than I could.
Well, you did a good job. Thank you.
You can come forward.
Mr. Aaron, put the microphone on so we can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So two illustrative projects that the Green Police Advisory Council has reviewed recently. One is a recommendations to improve the walk signal policies that the city has, to standardize some of the timings and thresholds for various types of pedestrian accommodation at traffic signals. So that's an advisory recommendation to the traffic engineer. Another illustrative example is the Henderson Bridge project that the state is doing in Fox Point, Wayland Square, and GCSE made recommendations for the city to pass along to the state to make sure that traffic coming off the bridge is not hazardous to city residents in that area.
Oh, sure, go right ahead, Councilman.
So, and forgive me, I'm not super knowledgeable on this, and this is more for clarification for my purposes. So in the event that, say, I would like some raised crosswalks in an area that is particularly somewhat dangerous when people are near a park, let's say, or anything along those lines, we would then go and receive advisory opinion from the council prior, if, let's just say we went through all the parameters, we told traffic engineer, hey, I'm thinking about raised crosswalks in this XYZ street. It goes then to, he does the studies or do the studies to determine whether or not this is feasible, and then it goes through what steps.
So I can speak to that, and if you want to add on here. So city council projects, specifically projects that are funded through, let's say, NIF or CBDG, are exempt from the requirements of this article. So no.
But Councilman, on that note, what if there are other funding that is not CDBG or NIF,
So
like CIP, capital improvement project?
So CIP, as far as I'm concerned, no, because city council initiated projects are exempt from the requirements of this article.
I'm not sure that CIP council initiated.
So,
Oh, I think it's in conjunction between the council and the administration.
yeah, so CIP would
So
be,
usually the result of it bond.
yep, that's more of an administrative function. So that would be, because this ordinance is already in place, anything that is CIP related with regards to what is defined as green and complete streets in the city would go through this process.
But the CIP is not on here.
As far as I'm concerned, so CIP would be a function of the executive branch of government. If it does fall within green and complete streets as a requirement of this ordinance, it would be required to go through this process. And there are examples of that.
Yeah, so the process is laid out in the ordinance, if I may, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you. So any request goes to the traffic engineer. Requests are studied to confirm that there is a speeding concern. If there is an obvious speeding concern based on the data, it does not go to Green and Complete Streets Advisory Council at all. It just goes automatically preliminary approved, traffic engineer designs it, and then it proceeds through that system. If it's sort of borderline, GCSE is allowed to add it to the queue.
Thank you for the clarification.
Right, but I don't think it would hurt to add CIP to it at some point. Just so we have more clarification on the matters. Anything else, Councilor Peterson?
No. No.
Councilman Varela.
I have a question for Councilman Montage. According to the Article B, here said all appointment members should be residents or domiciliaries of the city and should each serve for a term of 3 years. Does everybody who's in this list live in the city? Councilman?
Yes, sir. So all the members is, the clerk is demonstrating here, live in the city of Providence, correct?
But according to the names I have here in my paper, like Director of Public Works. It's a new member.
That refers to the voting members, the non-voting members or city employees. They are not required to live in the city.
So just for voting members? Councilor?
Yes, for the board
Correct.
members.
And as you can see, several of Captain San Lucas, for example, I don't know where he lives, but as you can see, his address that's listed there is the public safety complex. Priscilla De La Cruz.
Councilor, I don't think we need to disclose where people live. Just, I think that from Madam Clerk saying whether they live in the city or not is enough for me.
Okay.
This is a public meeting. So anyway. So we're okay, Madam Clerk?
You
Thank
are, sir.
Go ahead.
I think, in my opinion, I see too much confusion in this, because, so how many members this ordinance should have? 12 or 14?
You see, don't go there, yeah, I just got out of that call.
Yeah, so it would be 12 members or 14 members in total?
So there will still be 12 members, of course. That's what the current ordinance lists is 12 members
With two of
with 2 alternates.
them, we have 14.
So
So total 14.
a total of 14, but the alternate members fill in for members who are not able to attend.
What about they attend all together? So how you want to know that they're not going to attend?
They get a call from somebody call you to do the meeting.
I think it's similar to our council meetings. So for example, if we don't have a quorum, they would call the first alternate. If the first alternate can fill in, then that would hopefully create a quorum and so on and so forth. So it would be similar to the current setup that we have for all public bodies in the city that require a quorum.
It's looked, it's a great ordinance, but it's a lot of confusion. I would like to continue this ordinance.
Let me, while we're speaking about the structure of the membership. I get that we have to have about 5 of those are non-voting members. It doesn't really matter whether they're present or not, but do they constitute part of being a quorum? I imagine not, because they don't have any voting power. So you're saying that we have 7 members. And we're having difficulty getting a quorum. Maybe you should think about restructuring, replacing some of those members. Instead of adding, I mean, you can still add, it's, you know, it's a good thing to have extra. But you put someone in a very important position, because it's about public safety. They put their name on paper, they just don't show up. Has anyone thought about maybe restructuring the entire thing and put people that really want to be part of this, they really want to contribute? That's, you know, you don't have to put that in the ordinance, but I'm just saying, Mr. Ellis, maybe you should think about that. Because it sounds like you have people around there that really don't have any interest, which is why you don't have a quorum. I mean, this is an important committee, so you want to make sure it works. I'm sorry.
So
Just my 2 cents.
So I'm going to yield my time to Mr. Ellis. I'm sure he could speak to that better than I could. I would just share the current authority that we have as a council
Yes.
body, which there are members who have been appointed to this advisory committee. The 12 members have been appointed and approved by the city council. Theoretically, sure, they could be removed, but I don't know if that's the solution. And as far as the attendance and who's involved and the consistency of their involvement, I would defer to Mr. Ellis on that.
Well, I'd like to know how many meetings have been scheduled and how many have been canceled because of a lack of a quorum. To happen to have, not exact number, but just an idea.
Approximately half of meetings have needed to be canceled.
That's crazy. Wow.
And if I may, you know, we have a spectrum of attendance from the members. Most of the members have attended 2/3 to 3/4 of meetings at least, some more than that. Right now, you know, we have a member who's taking a class that changes their availability, another who is out on family leave that changes their availability. So it's a variety of reasons, but members resigning when they're have extended unavailability is also something that we are looking at.
Thank you, Councilman.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, perhaps and I would defer to all of you on this, perhaps the solution isn't necessarily to change the amendment, but if there are folks who are perhaps not attending or meeting their obligations, then that's something that perhaps the council or the mayor who has appointed those folks can discuss in terms of what we should do to hopefully ensure that there's more attendance, to your point.
Well, that will be internal within the structure and the membership of the board itself. I don't think the council is gonna order anyone off. That'll be up to the board themselves to
Mhm.
decide what's best for them, so it can be most effective. But having to cancel meetings, I feel bad for the people that do that.
And I think that ultimately the two alternate members are to solve for that issue. It's not to minimize anyone's duties or I think it's so that they can continue the important work that they're doing in the city of Providence.
Thank you, Councilor Harris, please.
I totally realize, the seriousness of why we have to, I'm so loud. You're good. The seriousness of this board and people need to come to meetings. I don't know whether that's a part of how boards operate under the city charter, whether there's certain things said in the charter about 3 consecutive meetings, or you have long distance to stay. Maybe the way the committee and the commission can write their proposal. But to me, when I look at resolutions, they have to be clean, they have to be enough for even a layman to understand and someone without all the legal background. I can't take Aaron with me everywhere I go, so sometimes these become complicated. You picked up resolutions, ordinance, and law, and it has just that big gray area. So I understand what the councilman, my brother in council was saying too, because that's exactly what I picked up on. It was like, this is too, But for the reason of people not showing up, I think that could be something easily resolved among the committee, re-looking at their policy, how they have the board structure, like the councilman said. And that's just my 2 cents, but that's why I was struggling with that. Trying to figure out why adding on more people when people are not coming to meet it in the beginning. Feed them.
And again, Mr. Chairman, so this was a recommendation that was made by the advisory committee. I would defer to them as to how they would like to potentially proceed with this specific clause. So it would be clause 8.
Well, here's where I'm having a little bit of a problem. So we pass this and we get instituted. And then there's a project coming up for which we needed an opinion from this board. And then we have to wait because they can't get a quorum together. And that'll bring to the frame time that we have to get the work done. So I'm just concerned about that as well, which is why it's important to be able to have a structure that works. So that when we come before the board, according to this, there are many projects that would go before the advisory board. And then we'll probably get tied up. So that's why that aspect of this will be extremely important.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm equally as concerned about that, which is why I think this is the potential solution to add 2 alternate members, but I think so. I'm getting a little confused here because I mean we're proposing to add 2 alternate members to solve for that issue, but the reception here hasn't been very warm for that. So I'm open to a discussion about what you think the solution is, and that's why I also
I welcome the idea of adding 2 additional members. Because that could potentially solve the problem, but there's no guarantee either. So we just, and we are as concerned as you are. Because at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to make sure that it works.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
And this is probably a question that I would propose to the advisory committee, but is there anything, Alex, from your perspective that you think could be done to ensure that more folks are attending the meetings more consistently? As a solution to the issue of not being able to achieve a quorum on a consistent basis.
So the two alternate members, I think, is the most surefire way to ensure that we can attend, because we could ask for the resignation of people with poor attendance, but unclear what the attendance would be like of the people who replace them, you know? So I think the alternate members is the clearest way to improve the quorum problems. That said, asking for people with poor attendance to resign and potentially revising the bylaws of the commission to require that in some fashion is also a avenue that we can pursue, and we can do both, and they can both make it more likely that we have meetings.
Would it? Sorry, Councilor, go ahead.
So I was gonna make that suggestion is to perhaps add an addendum to your bylaws that would reflect some sort of an attendance. Performance based, whatever it might be, but my question actually is, has there been, to the point that Chair Espinel had made, has there been a concern of being able to receive an advisory recommendation or opinion? Have we had to wait because we've had quorum issues, or has there been anything that in reference to what the chair has said where we've had to either stall a decision or wait? What has been the most recent experience of all of that?
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, absolutely, go ahead.
To my knowledge, there have not really been any, which is lucky. I think the cycle of where we're at in terms of large projects has made that.
Is there, I've got a question. Is there a way that we could perhaps add the two members and see how that works? If that could potentially solve the issue of attendance before moving in a way that so much is shift on you, and the advisory board may not be able to receive and perform. I mean, because we just, assuming that the additional two members might work, I'm just wondering if there's a possibility that we could probably somehow test that.
Before making a law.
Before moving into a direction where, now you have something solid that you must adhere to, but yeah, we can respond to because people are not being informed. Just a thought. Sure. Councilor, welcome. Acknowledge Councilor at the board.
Thank you so much, and sorry I was late.
That's because you were working.
I was also working just down the hall. I also wanted to speak in favor of these changes to the Green and Complete Streets ordinance. I think the part I was hearing just now is the part about adding the two alternate members.
Yes.
I was actually really excited about, because I think that my understanding is they've been having trouble reaching quorum, and like we have in the zoning committee, having the alternate members, which aren't necessarily like required at every meeting, they're like alternates, can help in that case, but there is kind of like not quite enough people around the table. I also really like that, it's going to be split, like the mayor gets an appointment, we get an appointment as those alternates. So it adds like a little bit more of us adding folks in the community, the mayor adding folks in the community, and adds like a little more of that rich voice to the conversation. And so I was particularly excited about that. I know some of having formerly chaired a city commission is hard sometimes to get quorum. Like people are so excited and then life happens, they're on paid positions. And so adding these in particular, I thought was a pretty exciting opportunity. And I'm sure that Councilman Gonsalves already explained all the other pieces that would be excellent. But I'm happy to speak to any of them as well. But just hearing the questions about that, I felt that was actually a really good thing that will help them actually do their work in a more prompt way. So if we are asking for their feedback on things, they can actually have a forum to meet and get us that feedback in more time.
Right, but just so you know, Councilor, before you came in, one of the concerns that we have is that half of the meetings I haven't scheduled have not had to be canceled because there's no quorum. You know, so this ordinance would send very key and important work to this committee
Yeah.
seeking for advice. And then if there's no quorum and there's no meeting, we might not be able to receive that advice, which is critical in getting the work done. So that was just the concern we're talking about.
Okay.
Councilor Harris.
Yeah, the addition of the people really don't guarantee the quorum, and it doesn't guarantee the quality of what that's done in here. I think, one of the things that, with this right here, what happened was, I think, I said to Tina, I'm so sorry I got this all messed up, because it was like adding more numbers, so you're adding more numbers to assist, to something that is not working already. You're like, what if 3 people were missing and those 2? Yeah, because there's been times here that we sit in meetings and just me and the other person was there, and I mean, there's only 5 of us, but
Yeah.
you know, that happens. So when I look at policies, resolutions, whether they're resolutions, whether they're ordinance, if it's not clear right away why, you know. I mean, I understand what you were saying about it's been working for the zoning committee, and maybe this is, I don't know. My question was, why this way? For the issue of having a quorum. Now, just adding it because the fact that we know that we have to keep this important work done, and 2 more people may help that. It may even trigger people to come because they want to make sure that they have their voices in there. I don't know. But to say because of a lack of quorum, that's sort of a little bit, that's where I was wrong a little bit.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so I just got the survey today and I looked at it briefly. I'm curious as to what the law department, if I may ask, if you have an opportunity to look it over and see what your opinion on this is.
Mr. Chair, I had not been asked to review this ordinance in advance of tonight. I have reviewed it tonight. I'd be happy to provide confidential client attorney protected review one-on-one. Happy to step into the hall and discuss this with any of you and I can do that now if you'd like, but it wouldn't be on the record, so I can protect that attorney-client confidentiality as well as work product.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And I just want to affirm for the record that this was worked on very diligently with not only members of the planning department, but our policy staff, and legal was a part of the discussions. So our legal staff, our city legal
Is the
staff.
staff for the city of Providence?
Correct.
So that was a public meeting, right?
That was not a public meeting, but in terms of the drafting of this language, that was a process that was done with our policy staff, planning, members of the planning department were involved in that, and also the city legal staff.
So there is a city solicitor staff, legal staff on record of participating in this.
They reviewed this, correct?
Do you know who? I didn't check there.
Did this solicitor, Miguel, would you happen to know? It's Miguel here. Or Chris, I can find out.
That's my witness.
Is great, but we can be here all night trying to figure out who did and when and how.
Well,
And
I think that, just for the record, let me just state that I've been a proponent and a supporter of Great Streets. And I think that great work throughout the years. I think it's an excellent project, but it's one that in order to work, it has to be a collective result, collective effort from everyone, and that we should all be on the same page. So I sense that there are certain concerns still. So I think it's like a work in progress because we need to get it there. So I like to see it get there, but I just see something that we all agreed on. And that is well put together so that it can withstand the test of time. Councilor Harris?
Mr. Chair, at one point you had mentioned the CIP money and saying that you would see
Well, that's
that,
question.
that was questionable whether that come before. Could we also, if this is something
CIP.
we're looking at again, can we also try to figure out exactly what, what other funding that we have that could probably go through this process, that we can have a smoother transition of what happens with our projects. You know what I mean? You did mention that and I was like,
And then there could be other sources of funding.
there could be other sources of funding, and if we could be clear on what that was. So our own connection be with this as well, as council people, other than. I mean, we want to make it work. We want to have those different projects that you guys been doing happen, but at the same breath.
So, right, and I sense that, the feeling is that perhaps we should continue to the next meeting. So it's like a work in progress, Councilor Andrew, I know I'll support you on this. This will not be a step back, it's a step forward. When you bring this forward to us, we look at different things, because the final product is gonna be a great product.
Yeah.
Because the concept of this, the vision, the idea is something that I know we all support, and we gotta get it there. So with that said, I will entertain a motion to continue.
So,
Motion is made and second, on favor, aye.
I,
Opposed? You guys have it, so this item is continued. Thank you. Madam Clerk, item number 1 for you.
An ordinance amending chapter 15, motor vehicles and traffic, section 15-11, residential parking, standing of certain commercial vehicles.
Thank you. I believe Council Underwood is here to speak on this item.
I am. Thank you so much for having me, ordinance committee. It's
Thank
nice
you.
to be with you. And I'm here also on behalf of Councilman Taylor, who couldn't join us tonight, but this is a pretty simple amendment to the to this ordinance. Basically, you can see it's crossing out for more than 1 hour, and it crosses out the time restrictions where large trucks can't be just hanging out for a long time. So before they were restricted to 1 hour between certain times. And what we're seeing across the city, and I'll share with you what Councilman Taylor has shared with his board, but what we're seeing is in residential zones and other places, some of these trucks parking for long periods of time and impeding traffic, impeding residents from trying to cross the street. Some of the examples Councilman Taylor also wanted me to share, which I'm glad to do on his behalf, are some of these 18-wheelers also parking in residential areas. Sometimes leaving their trucks on when they're not loading and unloading, just for their own, which creates pollution in our neighborhoods. That's a real problem, particularly along Allen's Avenue, to share that. And then he has noticed in his ward, I just want to share this, the people are parking on side streets, and it might not be the truck that's causing any issue, but people can hide behind the truck and do graffiti, and there's no way from the street to see what's happening behind those trucks, and it's creating real safety concerns for residents and also increasing graffiti in certain areas where the trucks generally park. So just by not allowing them to kind of like hang out on our streets for more than an hour at a time at any point in time could really help increase safety, increase the walkability of our neighborhoods, and cut down on some of this kind of behavior we can't see from the street that's happening behind the trucks, which Councilman Taylor wanted to share. It's not just graffiti and things like that, but also prostitution and things that we would want to be mindful of on our streets. I would love if you all would support this. I was really excited that Councilman Taylor wanted to work on this. I've heard about this from multiple people, particularly just to share from my ward in along North Main Street, as well as on Hope Street. This has been an issue, as long as in some of the side streets that connect those two main roads and people not being able to see to cross out into traffic, things like that. So I'll stop, but really appreciate you considering this for today.
Thank you. And what is the current ordinance says today? Is it 2 hours?
Yeah, so right now it's 1 hour. You can park for 1 hour, but it was only between these times. Is my understanding.
More at the time, is it a night?
Yeah, so it's, right now it's between 9 PM and 8 AM. You can park for more than 1 hour. And so we're saying like not that, or anytime on Sunday. But it really is just getting out of control, especially at night, and on weekends, people leaving their cars, are.
So you're basically cutting down from 2 hours to 1 hour, is that what this is?
Yeah, so it's basically saying you can't park for more than 1 hour ever. So instead of saying you can't park for more than 1 hour unless it's at night or on Sunday, it's just like you can park your large truck for 1 hour unless you're actively loading and unloading. So if you are actively working, you're doing your job, you're like loading out some soda to deliver to a restaurant or something, do that 100%. But you can't just leave the truck there and impede traffic. And impede all the other things there.
Right. Any questions from my fellow councilors? Councilman Vargas?
Thank you. Sure. Councilwoman, so it means like they cannot park at all, right? Like no parking overnight, or they can park overnight.
So my understanding is it would be no more overnight parking of these large vehicles. You're just not allowed to do that. You can't just like leave your large box truck on 5th Street overnight.
Neither on weekends.
Yeah, this cuts out, so there used to be special dispensation for nights and Sundays, and this just crosses that out. For any city-owned road, I should point out. For any highway, road, or parkway under the control of the city. So this actually doesn't help with my North Main Street example, for example, because we don't control that road, so bummer for me, but for any city-owned road.
So in that case, I will have a problem because Menton Avenue is now owned by the city.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Yeah, so Manton Ave or North Main Street, some of the large streets
I
that
hope they can put.
are DOT. Oh, yeah, that would be a DOT issue.
Grove Street and.
It's Broad Street, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a state.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. But so it doesn't fix everything, but it gets it off some of our, at least our city-owned streets.
Thank you.
Good question.
Councilor Peterson, Councilwoman Harris Peterson.
Thank you. I'll be Councilman Peterson today. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I wish also in here, a lot of these trucks also take advantage of the side streets and different areas that they are they're overweight to go down the streets. Is actually posted on some of those signs around in your neighborhoods, but they go anyway. I wish it was in here too. Is this an opportunity for us to look and say, okay, also prohibiting that to happen, for them to use those streets what they don't supposed to use, that they are overweight. I mean, from different parts of my area, I see that and we go through it a lot, especially around where I live at Pearl Street Lot, and that is definitely the heavyweight trucks, but they come through anyway, so. You know, these are violations, well, maybe we should tiptoe and see how this works and maybe push heavy, I don't know.
Yeah, I wonder, just to answer, I wonder if we start with this at least, and then maybe work on a more comprehensive thing. I know some of this parking, I mean, the reason why I was excited about Councilman Taylor putting this forward is some of these issues have created real safety issues in our communities. And they're putting- yeah, and so having a more comprehensive solution, like, let's start with this, let's not put this off, because let's do this right now, so we're not having unsafe conditions.
Right.
And then I would love to work with you, Councilwoman Harris, and others on like further updates to this.
Councilor Peterson.
I, for one, am fully supportive of something like this. We have a huge problem in Ward 14 of commercial trucks just parking on side streets, causing exactly what you mentioned, Councilwoman Canova. My one concern is that currently the way that we're structured, and I extend my list, I do a weekly drive through in my neighborhood every Sunday at 6 AM. And I send the same list of trucks that have been parked in the same spots every single week. And the constant message back that I get from parking enforcement police is that we have an issue, with Porto, we can't tow them out because our step is first ticketing. And then the second step, after X amount of times, I guess, so we don't have, because this is an ongoing, I think we're still looking for vendor, I'm not exactly sure what the process is right now. But we don't have any additional recourse in this current moment to actually enforce outside of a $50 ticket. And I, for one, am looking for something a little bit more substantial because it's a continued concern, that I can't seem to find any sort of, I can't alleviate for my constituents or for my side streets and I think we're all being impacted by it. I want this 100% like right now. But I really, really, really would like to make sure that we are advocating strongly to find, the next step forward for situations when we've already done the ticketing on the side streets of the 18-wheelers that just sit there. So that's it.
You have something else, Zach?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The other issue that we have too, that maybe we can work later on in this ordinance is these big trucks, they go over in the sidewalks and the sidewalks are cracking. They crack the sidewalks right away because the sidewalk. Yep, they're not ready to the weight of this truck, and that's a good idea, Councilwoman Harris, to create a little signage, a no overweight in the sidewalk is not done for a big truck. Thank you.
Councilman Goncalves, and then I'll go back to you, Councilman.
Yeah, I just wanted to affirm everyone's leadership on this. I think this is a great ordinance and I'm fully supportive. It sounds like other folks are as well. And I just, again, want to affirm a couple of points that were made. So the overweight comment that was made by Councilwoman here, and then the sidewalks pieces. And lastly, to go back to Councilor Peterson, I don't know if looking at the fines could be maybe something that would alleviate just what's occurring here, but just something to think about in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm really sorry, it's Councilwoman Engelbart.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Chairman. Yeah, so I want to also just agree. I think there are a lot of additional really good things that have been brought up here today, and I would love to work with members of this committee and others on some future changes to this ordinance. I think it would be good to make this change now and then think through some more comprehensive solutions. I know I get calls from many of my constituents about these trucks parked on the sidewalks, and as many of you probably do, I've just started calling the numbers on the back of the trucks and being like, hi, I called the cops on you, like, here's what's going down, whatever. And that's not really great, that's not the way to do it. I get tagged in a lot of tweets about this, like, here's the picture of
You're being recorded.
Yeah, I've done it and I will continue to do it. Time to read the tweets. Thank you, my constituents.
Yes.
And I don't think that should hold us up from passing this. And then I would love to think about more comprehensive things and then to have a side conversation with this legislators later. Because I know we are limited in terms of what fines we're allowed to do by state statute. I think it is more than this, but I would love to think about what an appropriate fine is.
Right.
And then also, are we collecting the fines? And this we've brought up in finance committee a lot, your sister committee of, we have big budget gaps and there's a lot of fines that we never collect on. And so are we beefing up or tokening up the staff in order to really collect on these fines? So it's not something that they can just ignore. So we're actually collecting it and bringing revenue into the city and hopefully stopping some of this behavior. So 100% would love to work with you guys on this.
Right, and when we speak about fines and, money and laws and ordinance and I would love to entertain your opinion of city solicitor when it comes to that. Because this is serious, because now we're talking about money.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to fines, generally speaking, the state statutory limit is $500. There are discrete statutes that speak to other specific circumstances that might cap it at a lower number. I have not seen one that speaks to, you know, parking and motor vehicle traffic that makes it any higher than 500, but I don't have that research with me.
What about the amendment in regards to the time that it's being proposed to change? Because it sounds like we're going 1 hour, 24 hours
Yeah.
for the entire day. They cannot park there for more than 1 hour.
So I was not asked to review this ordinance in advance of this meeting, but I did get a chance to look at it briefly. I'm happy to provide confidential opinions about this matter, one-on-one, happy to send that to the hall, would not want to, I'm not gonna break privilege with you guys, I'm happy to provide that advice now, in the future, whenever you'd like.
That's what it was.
Thank you very much, Chair. I see a lot of trucks unloading and loading. They usually take more than an hour because sometimes there's an 80-wheeler. They come from Connecticut and they do deliver to Webster, a market, and they usually take 2 hours to do that. So I will be fair to change this to 2 hours.
And that actually is already allowed because it says unless engaged in the loading or offloading of materials. So if they're actively working, they can take 5 hours, they can take as long as it takes to load and unload that truck. It's just the like sitting, parking, doing nothing that's limited to 1 hour. But if they're actively working, thumbs up, like keep going, yeah.
So, Councilor Underwood. So it sounds like you did not, or you were in favor of increasing the fine.
I mean, I'd be fine increasing the fine if people wanted to make that.
Is that something that you contemplated? But yet it was not done because you didn't know what your limitations were.
Councilman Taylor had been the primary author of this amendment and then I supported him. So I'm not sure if he had a reason to stick to the 50, but I can't imagine that he would want to, that he would.
Because I'm not sure $50 summons will deter anyone.
Especially when.
But I don't think that it's something that we probably do in this meeting all of a sudden. But I think it'd be worth sitting down with legal and actually, if you're gonna make an amendment to this, you might as well make it as strong as you can.
Yeah, that's fine.
And instead of passing half of the work,
That sounds great.
why don't you reconsider my suggestion that you sit down with legal and make it really strong, so we only do it once. And it's something that works.
Yeah, that's fine with me, and I'll follow up with Councilman Taylor in case, because he's been leading on this, but I'd be happy to do that and sit down with Eddie anytime.
So we can continue this, meet with Councilman Taylor and do something that will be strong
That's great.
and that'll work for the people. Is that something that my fellow councilor feels that we should take?
Yeah, I think
Right.
yeah. It would be.
I mean, this is needed,
Might
this
as
is,
well,
this is necessary, but we do want to do something that it's gonna withstand.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of striking while the iron is hot, removing this opportunity.
Well, we're just gonna, this could be back on here next month, within a few weeks. We can schedule it.
yeah,
It's not,
and stronger.
it's not trying to stop it, we're trying to continue it, it's just making it better and stronger.
Right, absolutely.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue.
So
Motion is made in second, all in favor of that,
I,
both, yeah, I had it, so. The item is continued, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your interest in this. These were two very important items
very
that will come back by next month, and that we will have a better product. It's something that we
absolutely.
support, right?
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much,
Oh,
Madam
yeah,
Clerk, means that
very
I'll put some business on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made in second, we're in favor of aye.
I.
Both, the ayes have it, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks for having